A poor girl approaches a young billionaire and says in a low voice, "There's a picture of you inside my mum's diary. She cries every night holding on to it, but never told me why." He freezes, looks into the girl's eyes, and starts crying without saying a word. Logan Carter adjusted his tie as he walked through the lobby of Carter Innovation. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages and notifications, but he was used to that frenetic pace. At 30 years old, he already ran one of the most promising technology startups in the market. What started as a project in a small apartment now occupied 3 floors in one of the city's most modern buildings. High coffee in one hand, a folder of documents in the other. Logan walked with the confident posture of someone who knows his value in the market. That day's meetings promised new investments, and he had everything planned down to the tiniest detail. As always, it was just another normal day for the young CEO. Another meeting, another contract, a few more millions at stake. The life he had meticulously planned since college. As he approached the exit door, something caught his attention. On the other side of the glass, a small figure was curiously observing the inside of the building. A girl of no more than 5 years old, wearing a red coat and carrying a colorful backpack. She had curly brown hair and large, expressive eyes. Logan looked around, searching for any adult who might be with her. Nobody. The child was alone, standing at the glass door of his company as though waiting for someone. Curious and slightly worried, he opened the door. "Hi," he said, crouching to her eye level. "Are you lost?" The girl smiled, revealing a missing front tooth. "No, I came to look for you." Logan frowned, confused. "Look for me? How do you know who I am?" "There's a picture of you inside my mom's diary. She cries every night holding on to it, but never told me why," she said, rocking on her feet. "I saw your face in the newspaper." Logan's heart sped up. A child had come to find him, based on a picture. "Who's your mom, sweetheart?" "Grace Bennett." The name hit Logan like a lightning bolt. Grace. It had been 5 years since he'd heard that name, 5 years since she disappeared from his life after their last argument. The memory still stung like it was yesterday. "Grace Bennett," he repeated, feeling his mouth go dry. "And what's your name?" "Ellie," the girl replied naturally. "Ellie Bennett, I'm 5. She held out her open palm, proud of knowing the numbers. 5 years. Exactly the amount of time since Logan and Grace separated. The math was too obvious to ignore, but his mind refused to process the implication. "Ellie, how did you get here?" "Does your mom know you're here?" The girl shook her head. "I came by myself. I wanted to meet you." Logan swallowed. He looked around, worried. A child wandering the city alone was a real concern. "And your mom? Where is she now?" "Working. She works a lot." He turned his attention to Ellie, who observed him with an unsettling intensity. There was something familiar in that look, something he recognized from somewhere. "Why did you come looking for me, Ellie?" The girl adjusted the backpack on her small shoulders before responding. "There's a picture of you inside my mom's diary. She cries every night holding on to it, but never told me why." The words struck Logan hard. Grace crying over him, after so long. The guilt he had buried over the past years surged back with full force. He felt his eyes burning. "Your mom, she..." Logan couldn't form a coherent question. His mind was a swirling mess of thoughts and emotions. "Why do you make my mom cry?" Ellie asked, tilting her head with genuine curiosity. "Did you guys fight?" The simplicity of the question nearly shattered Logan. How could he explain to a 5-year-old the complexities of adult decisions, the consequences of putting ambition over love? "It's complicated, Ellie," he finally said. "Grown-up stuff. Mommy says that too when she doesn't want to answer." Ellie made an adorable, frustrated face. Logan couldn't help but give a small smile, despite the inner turmoil in his chest. There was something irresistible about the child's honesty. "Do you like juice, Ellie?" he asked suddenly. The girl's eyes shone. "Yes, strawberry is my favorite." "How about we grab some juice nearby? You shouldn't be alone on the street." Ellie nodded enthusiastically. In the small diner beside the building, Logan watched Ellie sipping her strawberry juice. She swung her legs on the chair that was too big for her, excitedly talking about her teacher, her school friends, and her favorite cartoon. Logan could barely focus. His mind was racing, processing possibilities and weighing consequences. Ellie's facial features, her age, the timing, everything pointed to a conclusion he could hardly accept. "Does your mom ever mention me?" he asked, interrupting the girl's monologue about unicorns. Ellie shook her head. "Never. She just cries with the picture, and it has your name written on the back." Logan felt a lump in his throat. "Where does your mom work, Ellie?" "At a diner, the Bluebird Diner. She makes sandwiches and serves coffee." A diner? Grace Bennett, the talented designer he had met in college, now serving tables. The guilt pressed down harder on him. "Do you like ice cream, Ellie?" Logan tried to change the subject, unable to handle any more revelations. "Yes, chocolate." "Great. Let's get some before you head home." While Ellie enjoyed her ice cream, Logan tried to make sense of it all. Could the girl in front of him be his daughter? The idea was as frightening as it was thrilling. "Your mum's going to be worried if you don't come back soon," Logan said, checking his watch. Ellie licked a bit of chocolate from her spoon. "I'll meet her at work. I know the way." No, I can take you." Logan was alarmed at the thought of the girl walking alone again. "No need. I live close by. I go there often," Ellie smiled confidently. "And Mommy can't see me with you. She'd be mad." The comment struck Logan deeply. Of course, Grace would be furious if she found out Ellie had sought him out, but letting the girl go alone. "Ellie, it's not safe for a child to be walking around the city alone." "But I came alone," she shrugged. "And I know my way." Before Logan could insist, Ellie jumped off the chair, grabbed her backpack, and walked over to him. "Thank you for the juice and the ice cream. You're nice. I don't know why my mom cries." And without another word, the girl ran for the door. Logan stood up to follow her, but something stopped him. The fear of confronting Grace, the past, the consequences of his choices. Through the diner window, he watched Ellie carefully cross the street and blend into the crowd on the opposite sidewalk. Within seconds, she was out of sight. Logan returned to his seat, stunned. What had just happened? St. A little girl appeared out of nowhere, turned his life upside down with a few innocent words, and vanished like a dream. The Bluebird Diner. Grace, working as a waitress. A photo kept for 5 years. Nightly tears. And Ellie. Ellie Bennett, 5 years old, with the same eyes he saw in the mirror every morning. Logan took out his phone, opened his Maps app, and typed Bluebird Diner. The result showed a simple establishment a few blocks away. He gave up the meeting he had in half an hour. He gave up all that day's appointments. Nothing seemed so important now. With a heavy heart and a mind full of unanswered questions, Logan left the diner. Grace's name echoed in his thoughts. Alongside it, a new name that might change his life forever. Ellie. Logan didn't sleep that night. How could he? Meeting Ellie had reopened a wound he thought had healed years ago. Lying in the dark of his 15th floor apartment, with the city lights blinking through the panoramic windows, he stared at the ceiling. Grace Bennett. A name that never cooled in his memory, no matter how hard he tried to forget it. He rolled over for what felt like the 100th time and grabbed his phone. It was 3 in the morning. Giving up on sleep, he headed to the kitchen to make some coffee. While the machine worked, he leaned against the marble counter, letting the memories return. 5 years ago. He and Grace had been together for nearly 2 years. She was studying for her master's in literature, and he had just founded Tech Vision with his college friend, Patrick. "You'll make it," Grace used to say every morning before he left for another day, fighting to keep the small startup alive. "I believe in you." And he believed her. He believed so much that, when the crucial moment arrived, he made the biggest mistake of his life. Logan grabbed his coffee cup and walked to the window, gazing at the city that never slept. The buildings, the lights, the empty streets at that hour. Maybe somewhere down there, in one of those thousands of windows, Grace was also awake. The coffee tasted bitter, exactly like the memory of that day. The opportunity that arose required a choice he made alone, without consulting Grace, without considering what it would mean to her. He signed the contract, thinking about the company's future, the possibilities, the success he had always dreamed of. But Grace didn't understand. It wasn't the decision itself that hurt her so deeply. It was the way Logan excluded her, as if her opinion didn't matter. "You chose money and prestige," she told him. That's fine. That's your right, but you kept it from me until it was too late. Logan closed his eyes. Her words still echoed in his mind like she had said them yesterday. I trusted you, she continued that day, tears in her eyes, and you didn't even have the decency to include me in the decision. She was right. He had made his choice without her, afraid she'd convince him otherwise. But in the process, he lost something far more precious. A week later, she was gone from his life. No shouting or drama. She just took her things and left, leaving the keys on the table with a simple note, "Goodbye." Logan finished his coffee and placed the cup in the sink. The decision truly changed Tech Vision, which was now worth millions, but at what cost? And now, a 5-year-old girl was showing up at his door. Ellie Bennett, with the same intense green eyes as Grace. The same tilt of the head, the same way of furrowing her brow when concentrating. He grabbed his laptop and settled on the couch. He needed to find her. A quick online search for Grace Bennett returned thousands of results. He added the city name, filtered by images, social media, nothing that looked like her. Grace had never been very active online. But after nearly an hour of searching, Logan found a profile on a professional network. Grace Bennett, manager at the Bluebird Cafe. The photo was small, but it was her. The same subtle smile, the same brown hair, now a little shorter. The Bluebird Cafe was a 20-minute drive from his office. Logan studied the address, committing it to memory. Tomorrow he would go there. He needed to understand why Ellie had shown up in his life now. He needed to know why Grace still cried looking at his photo. More than anything, he needed to know whether that question pounding in his head since he saw Ellie's green eyes had any foundation. He returned to bed and lay down, knowing that sleep would not come. Morning would arrive soon, and with it, the confrontation with a past he had never truly left behind. The Bluebird Cafe wasn't what Logan expected. After a sleepless night and a morning cancelling meetings, he imagined a simple place, perhaps even run down. Instead, he found a charming spot with large windows, light wooden tables, and plants hanging from the ceiling. A cozy place that matched Grace. He stopped on the other side of the street, watching the movement. The cafe was busy. Through the glass, he saw people working on laptops, couples chatting, an older lady with a small dog sleeping at her feet, but no sign of Grace. He crossed the street and pushed the door open, greeted by the aroma of coffee and freshly baked bread. A young waitress smiled at him. "Good morning, table for one?" "Actually," Logan hesitated, "I'm looking for Grace Bennett. Does she work here?" The waitress's expression changed subtly. "Grace is the manager. She's in the back office. Want me to call her?" "Please." Logan chose a corner table where he could see both the front door and the door leading to the back. His heart pounded, and he realized he was clenching his fists under the table. 5 years. 5 long years. Then he saw her. Grace emerged from the back, still looking at some notes in a pad. Her brown hair was pinned in a simple bun, a few loose strands framing her face. She wore a light blue shirt with the cafe logo and jeans. She looked older, of course, but still Grace, the same upright posture, the same determined walk. She lifted her eyes and spotted him. For a brief moment, her expression revealed surprise and something else, fear, before it hardened into a neutral mask. "Logan," she said as she approached, not a question but a statement. "Hi, Grace," he replied, standing up. They remained that way for a few seconds, just looking at each other. Logan noticed the small lines at the corners of her eyes that weren't there before, the subtle weariness in her stance. "May I sit?" he finally asked. She nodded, sitting across from him. Her hands, he noticed, were firmly clasped on the table. "How did you find me?" Grace asked, her voice controlled and professional. Logan thought about lying, but what would be the point? "Ellie found me yesterday." Grace's eyes widened, and for a moment, the professional mask disappeared, revealing pure panic. "What? How?" "She showed up at the door of Tech Vision when I was leaving. She said—" Logan hesitated, unsure how to continue. He decided on straightforward honesty. "She said you cry looking at a photo of me." Grace paled, her fingers gripping her own wrist so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Where is she? Where did you leave her? Her voice trembled slightly. Calm down. She's fine. We talked a bit, had a milkshake, and then she left. She said you thought she was at a friend's house. Lily, Grace muttered, closing her eyes briefly. She said she would go play at Lily's. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Logan wanted to ask outright, but the words stuck in his throat. She has your eyes, he finally said. Grace opened her eyes and stared at him, her face a mixture of anger and pain. What do you want, Logan? After 5 years, what are you looking for? The truth, he answered simply. Is Ellie my daughter? Grace averted her gaze, looking at a group of students entering the cafe. Why does that matter now? You have your life. I have mine. We don't need to complicate things. Grace, Logan leaned forward, lowering his voice. I have the right to know. If she is my daughter. You have no right, Grace interrupted, her eyes returning to him, now cold. You lost any right when you chose to sign that contract without even consulting me, when you treated our relationship like something disposable. Her words hurt more than Logan expected, because they were true. I made a mistake, he admitted. A terrible mistake, but that was 5 years ago, Grace. And in 5 years you never tried to find me, never called, never sent an email. Nothing. Another silence, this time heavier. You never gave me the chance to explain, he finally said. You just left. What was there to explain, she whispered. You made your choice? Logan wanted to argue, to say he didn't know the consequences, that he regretted it every day since then. But it wasn't the time. Something more important was at stake. Grace, please. Is Ellie my daughter? She regarded him for a long moment, as though assessing something within him. I have to get back to work, she finally said, standing. And you probably have a company to run. Logan stood as well, frustrated but determined not to cause a scene. This isn't over, Grace. I can't just ignore what happened. It worked for 5 years, she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Before he could respond, the waitress who had greeted him approached. Grace, the coffee supplier is on the phone. Grace nodded, grateful for the interruption. I'll take it, she turned to Logan. Goodbye, Logan. See you soon, Grace, he responded. She hesitated a moment, as if about to say something else, but then turned and walked quickly to the back office. Logan stayed put for a few seconds, processing their encounter. She hadn't confirmed it, but she hadn't denied it either, and that alone was an answer. He took out his wallet and left a generous tip on the table, along with a business card with his personal number scrawled on the back. Next to the register, he saw a small display of handmade chocolates. He picked one with a colorful wrapper and asked for a slip of paper. In his firm handwriting, he wrote, "For the girl with the lovely smile, from your friend." He gave the chocolate and the note to the waitress. "Please give this to Ellie Bennett. She's Grace's daughter." The waitress smiled. "I know Ellie. She comes here after school. I'll give it to her as soon as she shows up." "Thank you." Logan left the cafe, feeling the fresh air on his face. The meeting hadn't given him answers, but now he was sure he wouldn't give up until he knew the whole truth. Ellie swung her legs from the tall cafe chair, nibbling her grilled cheese sandwich while watching her mom organize some receipts at the counter. It was Thursday, a day she got off school earlier, and she always spent the afternoons at the Bluebird Cafe while Grace worked until closing time. "Mom," Ellie called when Grace came over to check if she needed anything. "Guess what Lucy gave me today?" Grace smiled, tucking a stray curl behind her daughter's ear. "What, honey?" "A chocolate," Ellie exclaimed, eyes shining. "She said a nice man left it for me yesterday." Grace's smile froze. It had been 3 days since her encounter with Logan, and she had been trying to pretend it never happened. She'd called Lily's mother twice to make sure Ellie really had been there that day, and the friend confirmed, puzzled by Grace's insistence. Ellie must have gone to Tech Vision before or after visiting her friend. "What man, Ellie?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "My friend," Ellie replied excitedly. "He left a note too. Lucy said he told her it was for the girl with the lovely smile." The waitress approached, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, Grace. I should have told you, but you were so busy yesterday." She lowered her voice. It was the guy who came looking for you. He left the chocolate and the note for Ellie. Grace felt a mixture of irritation and something she didn't want to admit. Something like tenderness. "It's okay, Lucy, no problem," she replied, forcing a smile. "I want to see him again," Ellie announced, licking her cheese-smudged fingers. "He's nice, and he bought me a huge milkshake." "Ellie, you barely know this person," Grace tried to argue. "We can't just—" "But he's your friend, right?" Ellie interrupted with that childlike logic that always left Grace without an answer. "You have his picture. I saw it in your diary." Grace felt her face heat up, aware of Lucy's curious gaze. She waved to the waitress, indicating she had it under control. "We'll talk about this later, okay? Finish your sandwich." But Ellie wasn't known for giving up easily. "Please, Mom, just a little bit. He told a really funny story about a dog that ate socks." Grace sighed, recognizing defeat. Ellie would keep insisting, and eventually show up at Tech Vision on her own again if she didn't get what she wanted. Besides, if he really was, she couldn't complete the thought. "I'll think about it, Ellie. Now, please finish your sandwich." That night, after putting Ellie to bed, Grace sat in the small living room of her apartment, phone in hand, staring at Logan's business card. His personal number was scribbled on the back in that familiar handwriting. 5 years. 5 years building a life without him, raising Ellie alone, swallowing her pride to ask her parents for help when she had to go back to college. 5 years, convincing herself it was better that way. And now he was back. Before she could change her mind, she typed a message. "Ellie wants to see you again. Saturday, 3 p.m. at Riverside Park. 1 hour, no more. Grace." The reply came almost immediately. "I'll be there. Thank you, Grace." Nothing more. She felt a tightness in her chest, recalling how they once exchanged endless messages full of inside jokes and affection. Now they were reduced to cold mice, practical exchanges. Maybe that was for the best. The Saturday dawned sunny, which Grace took as a sign that at least the weather wasn't against her. Ellie was so excited that she woke up at 6 in the morning, asking every half hour if it was time to go to the park. "Remember, Ellie, it's just 1 hour," Grace repeated, helping her daughter choose an outfit. "And I'll be there the entire time." "Can I bring Mr. Fluff?" Ellie asked, holding her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Of course you can." By 2:30 p.m., they were already at the park. Ellie ran around the playground, climbing up and down the slides while Grace sat on a nearby bench, checking her watch every 2 minutes. At 2:50 p.m., she saw him. Logan walked along the stone path in jeans and a simple blue shirt. He looked nervous, scanning the area until he spotted Ellie at the playground. His face lit up at the sight of her, and Grace felt something twist inside her. "Ellie," she called, "come here for a minute." The girl slid off the swing and ran to her mum. Grace subtly pointed to Logan, now standing a few yards away. "Your friend is here." Ellie's eyes went wide with excitement. "Can I go?" "Can I go?" "Yes, but stay where I can see you, okay?" Ellie didn't answer. She raced toward Logan, Mr. Fluff swinging in her hand. Grace watched as Logan crouched to be on the girl's level, smiling as Ellie launched into a non-stop chatter, showing him the stuffed rabbit. Maintaining some distance, Grace observed their interaction. Logan seemed genuinely interested in everything Ellie said, responding enthusiastically and asking questions that made her laugh. After a few minutes on the playground, he pointed to something beyond the park, looking questioningly at Grace. She understood the silent question and nodded reluctantly. Logan took Ellie's hand, and they left the playground, heading toward a small commercial street next to the park. Grace followed at a safe distance. To her surprise, instead of going to the park as agreed, Logan took Ellie to a colorful children's bookstore on the corner. Grace paused outside, watching through the window as they entered. Enchanted Pages was a magical place with low bookshelves full of children's books, cozy reading nooks with bright beanbags, and murals depicting fairy tale characters. Grace watched as Logan let Ellie choose which section she wanted to explore first, and she immediately pulled him to the animals section. From her vantage point, Grace saw them sitting on yellow beanbags. Ellie on Logan's lap as he read a book about rabbits. Ellie's focused expression, the way she leaned comfortably against him as if she had known him for years instead of days, all of it made Grace's heart ache. After a while in the bookstore, they left and went to the candy store next door. Once again, Grace watched from a distance. Logan helped Ellie pick out a chocolate cupcake, and they sat at a small table near the window. The girl laughed at something he said, chocolate smudging the corner of her mouth. Grace noticed how Logan instinctively reached for a napkin to wipe Ellie's face gently. It was such a natural gesture, so paternal. She had to look away for a moment, feeling her eyes burn with unshed tears. When she looked back, Ellie was pointing at something in her cupcake, and Logan pretended to be horrified, making the girl burst into laughter. Grace couldn't help a small smile. Ellie was always quick to connect with people, but this felt different, something deeper. Almost an hour later, they left the candy store. Logan held a small package, which he gave to Ellie. Her eyes sparkled as she opened it to find a book about rabbits, probably the same one they had read at the bookstore. They strolled back to the park, and Grace quickly sat on a bench, pretending she had been there all along. She watched as Logan kneeled down to Ellie's level again, saying something that made the girl nod solemnly. Then, to Grace's surprise, Ellie threw her arms around Logan, her small limbs barely reaching around his neck. For a moment, Grace saw the expression on Logan's face, a mix of surprise, joy, and deep pain. He closed his eyes briefly, hugging Ellie back as if she were the most precious thing in the world. When they pulled apart, Ellie ran toward Grace, clutching the new book to her chest. "Mommy, Mommy, look what Logan gave me. It's a book about rabbits, just like Mr. Fluff. And we had cupcakes, and he told me about when he was little and had a dog named Max who ate his dad's shoes." Grace smiled at her daughter, stroking her hair. "That's great, sweetheart. Did you have fun?" "So much," Ellie exclaimed, opening the book to show the illustrations. "He said we can read it together next time." Grace looked up, finding Logan standing a few yards away, watching them with cautious eyes. She didn't know what to say or how to act. Part of her wanted to tell him to go away for good. Another part, well, that part she had been ignoring for 5 years. "Go say goodbye," she finally said. "It's time for us to leave." Ellie ran back to Logan, saying something Grace couldn't hear. He nodded, smiling, then waved at Grace from a distance, making no move to come closer, respecting the space she had set. On the way home, while Ellie chattered about all the cool things Logan had said and done, Grace reflected on the afternoon. Against her will, she had to admit, Logan had behaved flawlessly. No expensive or extravagant gifts, just an age-appropriate book. No attempt to show off with fancy places, only a safe, cozy environment for a child. And most importantly, Ellie's happiness was genuine. The bond between them was undeniable. "Can we see Logan again, Mommy?" "Please," Ellie asked for the third time as they waited for the bus. Grace looked at her daughter's face, those green eyes so much like her father's, the smile that combined features of both of them. "We'll see, Ellie. We'll see." Later that night, after reading the new book to Ellie 3 times before she finally fell asleep, Grace picked up her phone. She hesitated a moment before typing, "Thanks for the book, she loved it." The reply came almost immediately. "She's amazing, Grace. Thank you for today." Grace stared at the message for a long time before typing once more, "Next Saturday, same time." The response made her heart skip a beat. "I'll be waiting. Good night, Grace." She set her phone aside without replying. Things were moving too quickly. Boundaries she had carefully built were dissolving, and she wasn't sure she'd be able to rebuild them if necessary. But looking at Ellie's sleeping face, still clutching the new book in her arms, Grace knew she had no choice. As much as she wanted to protect her own heart, her daughter's happiness came first. And if that meant letting Logan back into their lives, and well, she would have to find a way to handle the consequences. The Saturday meetups had become a routine over the past few weeks. At first, Grace watched every minute with eagle eyes, ready to intervene at the smallest sign of trouble. But Logan always behaved impeccably with Ellie, keeping activities age-appropriate and respecting every boundary Grace set. On this particular Saturday, the 3rd in a row, Logan arrived with a small paper bag when he came to pick Ellie up at the usual spot. "What's that?" Grace asked, her eyes fixed on the bag. "Stale bread," Logan replied with a smile. "I thought I'd take Ellie to the lake today to feed the ducks, if that's okay with you." Grace hesitated. The lake was a bit farther than the places they'd visited before, but still a public area bustling with families on weekends. "Please, Mummy." Ellie jumped excitedly beside her, already wearing her favorite coat and clutching her ever-present stuffed rabbit. "I've never fed ducks before." "All right," Grace relented, checking her watch. "But remember, 1 hour." "I promise I'll bring her back on time," Logan assured. Then, in a softer tone, he added, "You could come with us if you like." The invitation caught her off guard. Until now, they had kept a careful distance from each other during Ellie's visits with Logan. "I think I'll pass," she replied automatically. Something flashed in Logan's eyes, disappointment maybe. But he nodded without pushing. "Shall we go, Ellie? The ducks must be hungry." The girl beamed, taking Logan's hand with an ease that looked as though they'd done it their whole lives. Grace watched them walk away along the path, that familiar pang in her chest returning. Sasiamaizamak of the lake was a blue-green mirror surrounded by trees beginning to show the first colors of fall. Logan found a quiet bench by the water where fewer people passed, and he sat with Ellie. "We need to be gentle with the ducks," he explained, opening the bag of bread. "We throw small pieces so we don't scare them, and never toss too much in one spot, so they all can eat." Ellie nodded solemnly at each instruction, her wide green eyes taking it all in. Logan tore off a piece of bread and demonstrated how to throw it into the water. Almost immediately, 2 ducks paddled over. "They're coming," Ellie whispered, amazed. "Now you try." Logan handed her a piece of bread. Carefully, Ellie tossed the bread into the water, a bit closer to the shore than intended. Still, a small brown duck swam over and snatched it. "I did it!" she exclaimed, clapping her hands in excitement. "He liked my bread." "Of course he did." "You have a great throw." For nearly 40 minutes, they fed the ducks, enjoying the peacefulness of the lake and the simplicity of the moment. Between tosses, they talked about small things: Ellie's favorite colors, purple and yellow; her teacher, Miss Kelly, who told the best stories; her best friend at school, a boy named Diego who drew amazing dinosaurs. "So you know what?" Ellie said suddenly, while ripping another piece of bread. "I really like spending time with you." Logan felt a knot form in his throat. "I really like spending time with you too, Ellie." "Mommy gets sad sometimes," she went on, with the disconcerting candor of children. "But she smiles more on the days we meet." "Really?" Logan asked, surprised. Ellie nodded. "When I get home, she asks what we did, and I tell her everything. Then she smiles a little, not a big smile, but a real one, you know." Logan understood perfectly. He had always been able to read Grace's smiles, the polite ones, the genuine ones, the ones that didn't reach her eyes. "Your mom is a very special person," he said carefully. "I know," Ellie agreed, tossing more bread. "She does everything by herself. She works, takes me to school, makes my dinner, reads me stories, but sometimes I hear her crying at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Logan stayed quiet, letting the girl continue if she wanted. He didn't want to push, but his heart pounded in his chest. "Diego has a dad who plays with him every day," Ellie said after a moment. "And Lily has a dad who lives in another house, but he still picks her up on weekends." The implication was clear, even coming from a 5-year-old. Logan took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. "Ellie, sometimes things between grown-ups are complicated, but I want you to know that I like you very much and I'm glad we met. You knew my mom before, didn't you? She had your picture." Logan nodded, tossing the last piece of bread into the water. "Yes, I knew your mom a long time ago. We were—" He hesitated. "Very good friends. Why did you stop being friends?" The simple question demanded a response too complex for a child. "I made a mistake," he finally said. "I did something that made your mom very sad, and she decided it was better for us not to be friends anymore." Ellie frowned, processing this. "But if you said you were sorry, she should forgive you." "Miss Kelly says we have to forgive people when they say they're really sorry." Logan gave a sad smile. "It's not always that simple, little one, but I'm trying to do things right now." Ellie looked at the bright watch on her wrist, one of those that help kids learn how to tell time. "We have to go back. Mom will be worried." "You're right. Let's go." She took his hand without hesitation, and they walked back chatting about the ducks and which ice cream flavor was Logan's favorite. Grace checked her watch for the third time in 5 minutes. There were still 10 minutes left before the agreed time, but she was already restless. Maybe she should have accepted Logan's invitation. Maybe... "Mommy!" Ellie's voice interrupted her thoughts. Grace turned to see her daughter running toward her, cheeks flushed with excitement, with Logan following a few steps behind. "Mommy, it was so cool!" "We fed the ducks, and they came really close, and there was even a baby duck that was so fluffy, and Logan said I have the best throw in the world." Grace smiled, crouching to hug her daughter. "Sounds like you had a lot of fun." "It was the best day," Ellie declared, hugging her mom tightly. "Can we do it again sometime?" "Please, please." Grace glanced over Ellie's shoulder and saw Logan standing at a respectful distance, hands in his pockets, watching their interaction with an expression she couldn't fully read. There was definitely fondness there, but also something else. Longing, maybe. "We'll see, honey," Grace replied, standing up. "Say thank you to Logan for the outing." "Thank you, Logan." Ellie ran back to him and hugged him around his waist. "It was the best day with ducks ever." He laughed, ruffling her hair lightly. "Thank you for joining me, Miss Ellie. It was the best day with ducks for me, too." As Ellie returned to her mother's side, Logan and Grace exchanged a brief but meaningful glance. There was a silent truce there, a small crack in the door Grace had kept firmly shut. "Until next Saturday," he asked, with a caution the older Logan she once knew didn't possess. Grace hesitated for only a moment before nodding, "Until Saturday." On the way home, while Ellie recounted every detail of the trip to the lake, Grace realized something had changed within her. The resentment she had carried for so long, the hurt she had diligently nurtured for 5 years, was starting to lose its strength, like thin ice under spring sun. She wasn't ready to forgive entirely, not yet, but for the first time, she could imagine a future where forgiveness was possible. Logan straightened his tie for the 3rd time, staring at his reflection in the mirror. He hated board meetings, always so formal, always so disconnected from the true essence of innovation he sought with Tech Vision. But today, not even hours of financial reports with investors could occupy his mind. Only one thought wouldn't leave him: Ellie. 4 weeks of Saturday meetups. 4 weeks discovering every little detail about the 5-year-old girl who had stormed into his life like a hurricane. Her favorite book, her favorite color, how she wrinkled her nose when concentrating, just like Grace did. Grace. She still hadn't confirmed what he suspected from the first moment he saw Ellie's green eyes. He didn't need a DNA test to know. The child was his. She had to be. So why remain in limbo? Why allow these visits without confronting the truth? The answer was both simple and complex. Fear. Fear she might say no. Fear Grace would deny his suspicion and he'd lose the right to see Ellie. And maybe, even more frightening, fear of hearing yes and facing the magnitude of what he had missed these past 5 years. "Mr. Carter, the meeting starts in 5 minutes, his assistant announced, interrupting his thoughts. "Thanks, Kate. I'm on my way." Throughout the meeting, discussing financial forecasts and market strategies, Logan took notes and answered questions almost automatically. His body was there, but his mind wandered to a park bench where a little girl in a red coat tossed bread to the ducks. What if I'm getting too close without having the right? The thought tormented him. What if she isn't my daughter, and I'm forming a bond that shouldn't exist? But there was also the opposite thought, equally unsettling. What if she is my daughter, and I waste these precious moments out of cowardice to face the truth? When the meeting finally ended, Logan made a decision. Regardless of the outcome, he needed to know. For himself, for Grace, and above all, for Ellie. Grace was folding Ellie's colorful t-shirts, putting them away neatly in the drawer. Her daughter slept in the next room, exhausted after an afternoon at her grandmother's. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the kitchen clock. In these moments, alone with her thoughts, Grace felt the weight of the choices she had made. Leaving Logan had been the right choice at the time. She was hurt, betrayed not by the decision itself, but by the fact he hadn't included her in something so crucial. To Grace, It symbolized everything she feared, that deep down, she wasn't truly a priority for him. When she found out she was pregnant, 3 weeks after leaving their apartment, her first instinct was to call him. Her fingers hovered over her phone countless times, but then she remembered his expression when he told her he signed the contract without telling her, as if it were a small, insignificant thing. If he didn't consult me on something so important to me, how can I trust he'll put our child first? Deciding to raise Ellie alone wasn't easy. Her parents helped financially, allowing her to finish her master's while caring for a newborn. But sleepless nights, unexpected fevers, little triumphs and disappointments, she faced all of it alone. And now Logan was back, gradually entering their lives with Saturday outings and simple gifts, with patience and respect she hadn't expected. Grace finished putting away the clothes and went to the table where Ellie had left her school drawings. There was one in particular she'd been avoiding looking at directly. She picked it up carefully. On the brightly colored paper were 3 stick figures, a small one with curly hair, a taller one with long hair, and another one with short hair. "My family," read the caption in big, uneven letters. Underneath, with the teacher's help, Ellie had written, "Me, Mommy, and Logan." Grace felt tears burn her eyes. For weeks, she'd convinced herself she was allowing these meetings only for Ellie's sake. But the truth was that part of her, something she had buried deep, still responded to Logan's presence. It was how he looked at Ellie, like she was the most fascinating thing in the universe. How he kept a respectful distance from Grace, never pushing for more than she was willing to give. How, despite his company's success, he showed up at Saturday meetups in simple jeans and worn t-shirts, just like the Logan she'd known in college, the Logan she had fallen in love with, before money and success became a possibility. The phone rang, breaking the silence and her thoughts. Logan's number lit up the screen. Grace took a deep breath before answering. "Hello? Grace?" Logan's voice sounded tense. "Sorry to call so late." "It's fine. Did something happen?" "No. Yes. I mean..." He hesitated. "Can we talk? In person?" Grace felt a stab of anxiety. "Now. Ellie's asleep. I can't..." "I know. Sorry. I didn't mean right now. Tomorrow. Maybe. At the cafe. After you close. I need to talk to you. Just you." The tone of his voice, that unusual hesitation in someone always so sure of himself, made Grace understand. He wanted the truth, and maybe, after 5 years, she was finally ready to give it. "Okay, we close at 9. How about 9:30? I'll be there. Thank you, Grace." After hanging up, she looked at the drawing again. 3 stick figures, 1 family. The past weighed on her, but the future was a blank page waiting to be colored. The Bluebird Cafe was empty when Logan arrived, 15 minutes early. The chairs were flipped upside down on the tables, the main lights off, just a few softer lights on behind the counter where Grace was wrapping up the day's business. She looked up when the door chime announced his arrival, and for a moment they just gazed at each other, separated by the physical space of the cafe and 5 years of absence. "Are you open?" Logan asked, trying to break the ice. "Only for you," Grace replied in a tone he couldn't decipher. She gestured for him to approach the counter. Logan noticed she looked tired, small shadows under her eyes, her hair pinned in a messy bun. Yet to him, she remained the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. "Coffee?" she offered. "Please." While Grace prepared 2 cups, a tense silence hung between them. There were so many things to say, so many questions and answers overdue, it was hard to know where to start. "How's Ellie?" Logan finally asked. Grace smiled softly, the first genuine smile he'd seen on her face in years. "Sleeping. She spent the day with my parents and came back exhausted. Mom told me she talked about you non-stop." "She's amazing, Grace," Logan said, accepting the cup she handed him. "So smart, so full of life. You did an incredible job with her." Grace's eyes shone with pride. "She's the most important thing in my life." Logan took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Grace, I need to know. I can't keep going like this. Is Ellie my daughter?" The question hovered between them, heavy and tangible. Grace lowered her eyes to her cup, her fingers gripping the handle tightly. "Why does it matter now, Logan?" she whispered. "You have your life, your company." "It matters because I'm falling in love with that little girl more every Saturday," he said, his voice quivering. "Because I need to know if I have the right to feel what I'm feeling. Because if she is my daughter, I lost 5 precious years of her life and I don't want to lose another day." Grace raised her eyes, and Logan saw they were brimming with tears. "And if she is your daughter, what changes?" "Everything," he answered simply. "And nothing. I'll still want to be part of her life, exactly as I do now. But I'll know I have the right to be there for her, to be her dad." The word dad seemed to open a floodgate in Grace. A tear slipped down her cheek. "You would have that right if you had looked for me when I left. If you had fought for me. For us." "I tried," Logan said, feeling old guilt rise again. "I called dozens of times in the first few weeks. You never answered. I went to your parents' house. Your mom said you didn't want to see me. After a while, I accepted your decision." "I was hurt, Logan," Grace admitted. "So hurt. You don't understand what you did. You really don't. It wasn't just the contract. It was the fact you didn't include me, like I wasn't important enough to be part of decisions that affected our future together." "I know." He hung his head in shame. "I was an idiot. I was so obsessed with the company's success, so desperate to prove my worth. I didn't see I already had everything that mattered. You." Grace drew a long breath, as though gathering her strength for what she'd say next. "When I found out I was pregnant, 3 weeks after I left our apartment, I almost called you." Logan's heart froze for a moment. "Why didn't you?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd be with me only out of obligation. Afraid the company would always come first. Afraid that one day you'd do to Ellie what you did to me, make decisions that affect her life without consulting her." Logan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. When he opened them, there was resolve in his gaze. "I made a terrible mistake, Grace, the worst mistake of my life. And I've spent 5 years paying for it, even without knowing about Ellie." He placed his hand on the counter, not touching hers, just opening it in a gesture. "I'm asking for forgiveness, not for what I did to the company or to the project, but for betraying your trust, for not being the man you deserved." Grace looked at his extended hand, then back into his eyes. The tension between them was palpable. "Ellie is your daughter," she finally said, her voice steady despite the tears. "She always has been." Logan felt like the whole room was spinning. Though he had suspected, hearing the confirmation from Grace's lips was overwhelming. A daughter, he had a daughter. An incredible 5-year-old who shared his blood, his genes, his crooked smile. A daughter who didn't know him as her father. "Why did you let me see her now?" he asked, voice trembling with emotion. "After all this time?" Grace shrugged lightly, a gesture that carried the weight of years of hard decisions. "She found you first. Then, after watching how you were with her, how you treated her, I realized I might have denied her something important, a father." "Thank you," Logan said, tears rolling down his face without shame. "Thank you for letting me meet her, even after everything." "She looks like you," Grace admitted, a small smile appearing between her tears. "She has your stubbornness." "And your smile," Logan laughed, a sound broken by emotion. "But she has your eyes, and your heart." A moment of silence passed between them, less tense than before, as though a massive weight had been lifted off their shoulders. "What do we do now?" Grace asked. Logan took a deep breath, wiping his face with his shirt sleeve. "I'm not sure exactly. I just know I want to be there. I want to be the father Ellie deserves. I want to make up for every day I missed." He looked directly into Grace's eyes. "I promise I'll never abandon her again, never leave you alone with this responsibility." "She doesn't know," Grace cautioned. "I didn't tell her you're her father." "Whenever you think the time is right, I'll be ready," Logan assured. "No rush?" Grace nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. The path ahead would be complicated, filled with tough conversations and adjustments, but for the first time in 5 years, they both felt like they were moving in the right direction. On the wall behind the counter, Grace had hung some of Ellie's drawings, Among them, Logan spotted one that seemed to show 3 stick figures holding hands. A family, a past that weighed heavily, but not as much as the promise of a future. Logan parked his car a block from the elementary school, 15 minutes before the final bell. It was the first time he would pick up Ellie from school, and his heart pounded, as though he were about to present to 1,000 investors. 3 months had passed since Grace confirmed Ellie was his. 3 months of adjusting, conversations, and daily little discoveries. Logan now formed part of Ellie's routine, picking her up at school 3 times a week, having dinner with them most nights, and going on outings together on Saturdays. Today, though, was different. After much discussion, he and Grace had agreed that today they would finally tell Ellie the truth. Grace would be waiting at home so they could explain together. Logan rechecked the message Grace had sent. "Ellie knows you're picking her up. She's very excited. Please come straight home. We'll talk together." The sky was filled with dark clouds, and the weather app on his phone indicated heavy rain by late afternoon. Logan sighed, hoping the weather wasn't a bad omen. When the bell rang, he stood at the main gate, watching groups of noisy kids pour out. His eyes scanned for Ellie's familiar brown curls, and when he finally saw her, his heart soared. "Logan!" she shouted, running toward him with her unicorn backpack bouncing behind her. "You really came." He crouched to greet her, almost losing his balance as she flung herself into his arms for a big hug. "I told everyone you were picking me up today," she informed him proudly. "Really?" Logan smiled, standing up and taking her backpack. "And what did you say about me?" "That you're my special friend who tells cool stories and takes me to see the ducks," she said, bouncing happily as they headed to the car. Diego was jealous because his dad never takes him to see ducks. Special friend. The words were both sweet and painful. Soon, if all went well, she would call him something very different. "How was school today?" he asked, helping her into the back seat and buckling her seatbelt. "It was cool. We learned about the seasons, and I drew a fall picture with real leaves I glued on the paper. My teacher said it was exceptional, which means very, very good." Logan smiled as he started the engine. During the drive, Ellie chattered non-stop about her teacher, her friends, and how she was learning to write hard words. Logan listened, asking questions, genuinely interested in every detail of her school life. They were halfway home when heavy raindrops began to fall, quickly intensifying into a downpour. "Wow, it's raining a lot," Ellie exclaimed, pressing her face against the window. "Looks like the sky opened up," Logan agreed, slowing down while the windshield wipers worked overtime. By the time they reached Grace's street, the rain was so strong they could barely see the sidewalk. "We'll have to run," Logan said, parking as close as possible to the apartment entrance. "Ready to get a little wet?" "Yes," Ellie replied excitedly. "I love running in the rain." Logan grabbed her backpack and a small umbrella from the glove compartment, though he knew it wouldn't be much help against the deluge. "On 3, man, we run. 1, 2, 3. They jumped out of the car and dashed toward the building, Ellie giggling loudly as the rain soaked them. Logan tried to keep her partly covered with the tiny umbrella, but it was hopeless. By the time they reached the entrance, they were drenched. "That was so fun," Ellie cried, shaking her head and spraying water everywhere. Logan laughed, running a hand through his wet hair. "It was, but your mum's going to kill me for letting you get soaked." "Mummy won't be mad," Ellie declared as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. "She's been happy lately. She smiles more." Logan felt a warmth spread through his chest at that. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for them to be a real family. When they arrived at the door of apartment 304, Ellie knocked happily, announcing, "Mommy, it's us, we're soaked." Grace opened the door, her eyes widening at the sight of both of them dripping in the hallway, hair plastered to their faces, clothes stuck to their bodies, but smiling like they'd just won the lottery. "Oh my gosh, you're both drenched," she exclaimed, opening the door wider so they could come in. "What happened to the umbrella?" "It was too small," Ellie explained, laughing, "and the rain was too big." "It was an unfair fight," Logan added, smiling shyly at Grace. For a moment, Grace just took them in. Father and daughter side by side, same smiles, same amused expressions, dripping water on the entrance rug. Something in her face softened. "I'll get towels," she said, shaking her head in a mixture of exasperation and affection. "Ellie, take off those wet shoes." Minutes later, Ellie was dry and in clean clothes, sitting on the living room couch with a cup of hot chocolate. Logan had only managed to change his shoes, wearing a thick pair of socks Grace had lent him. His hair was still damp, but he'd used a towel to dry his face and arms. Grace sat in the armchair opposite the couch, exchanging a meaningful glance with Logan. This was it. "Ellie, sweetie," she began softly but firmly, "Logan and I want to talk to you about something important." The girl looked at them, curiosity lighting her green eyes. "Is it a surprise?" Logan sat next to her on the couch, leaving a small space between them, his heart pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. "In a way," Grace answered, taking a deep breath. "Remember when you asked me about your dad?" Ellie nodded, her expression becoming more serious. "You said he lived far away." "Yes, I did," Grace admitted, meeting Logan's eyes briefly. "But that wasn't entirely true, honey. Your dad doesn't live that far away." Ellie frowned, trying to understand. "He lives here, in the city." "Yes, he does," Grace confirmed, leaning forward. "Actually, Ellie, Logan is your dad." For a moment, time seemed to stop. The only sound was the rain against the windows. Ellie's eyes widened, flicking from Grace to Logan and back again. "Logan is my dad," she repeated, her voice small and full of surprise. Logan felt his throat tighten. He wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. "Yes, honey," Grace confirmed gently. "Logan is your father." Ellie turned to look at Logan, studying his face as if seeing it for the first time. Her green eyes, so much like his, examined every detail. "Is that why you started taking me places?" she finally asked. "Because you're my dad?" Logan found his voice, though it was raw with emotion. "No, Ellie. When I started spending time with you, I didn't know I was your dad. I just knew you were an amazing little girl I wanted to get to know better." "But you knew my mom before," Ellie reasoned, the pieces fitting together in her 5-year-old mind. "That's why she had your picture." "Yes," Grace interjected. "Logan and I knew each other a long time ago. We were very close." "Before you were born?" Ellie fell silent for a moment, as though sorting through her feelings. Then a shadow crossed her small face. "If you're my dad, why didn't you ever come see us before?" She looked straight at Logan, the question hanging like a heavy cloud in the air. Logan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. It was the question he feared most, and yet the fairest one. "I didn't know about you, Ellie," he answered honestly, his voice trembling. "If I had known, I would have come immediately. I would have been here from day one." "You didn't tell him, Mommy?" Ellie asked, turning to Grace. Grace took a deep breath, aware that this moment would come. "No, sweetheart, I didn't. And that was my decision, not Logan's. He had no choice." "Why?" The simple question carried the weight of 5 years of secrets. Grace looked at Logan as if asking permission to continue. He gave a slight nod. "Because your mom and I had a disagreement," Logan explained gently. "I did something that hurt her a lot, and she decided we shouldn't be together. But if you fought, why didn't you make up?" Ellie asked, her childlike logic laying bare the complexity of adult relationships. "Miss Kelly says when we fight with someone, we should talk and say we're sorry." Grace smiled sadly. "Sometimes, Ellie, when grown-ups hurt each other, it's more complicated. It takes time to heal certain wounds." Ellie was quiet again, her face a mix of emotions. Logan braced for rejection, anger, even tears. But what she said next surprised him more than anything. "So," Ellie said slowly, "can I call you Daddy now?" The simplicity of the question and the hope within it broke something inside Logan. Tears he had been holding back began to fall freely. "I would love that, Ellie," he managed, voice shaking. "More than anything in the world." A smile lit Ellie's face, and she threw herself into his arms without hesitation. "I always wanted a daddy," she declared, hugging him tight. "And you're already my friend, so it's even better." Logan hugged her back, feeling her small body against his, smelling the childlike shampoo in her damp hair. It was as if a missing piece inside him had finally clicked into place. Over Ellie's head, he met Grace's gaze, glistening with unshed tears. There was pain there, but also something else. Relief, perhaps, that she no longer had to carry this burden alone. "Ellie," Grace called softly after a few moments, "why don't you go get that drawing you made yesterday? The one about family. I'm sure Logan would love to see it." Ellie hopped off the couch, excited. "It's the best drawing I've ever done," she proclaimed before running to her room. As soon as they were alone, a heavy silence fell between Grace and Logan. "Thank you," he finally said, "for allowing this, for letting me be part of her life now." Grace exhaled. "It wasn't an easy decision, Logan. For 5 years, I built a life for us, just the two of us. Letting you in," she hesitated. "I'm afraid she'll get too attached and then get hurt." "I won't disappear, Grace," Logan said firmly. "Never again. Ellie is my daughter. I want to be there for every moment of her life from now on. Birthdays, school plays, graduations, everything." "What if your company needs you? If another important deal comes up, another opportunity that can't wait?" Grace's voice held the echo of old wounds. "I learned the hard way that no contract or amount of money is worth what I lost in the last 5 years," Logan replied with intensity. "I won't make the same mistake twice." Grace studied him for a long moment, as though trying to see straight into him, to find the truth in his heart. "We'll need to set boundaries, rules about how this is going to work," she said finally, "for Ellie." "Whatever you want," Logan agreed quickly. "We can do this however is best for her." "She's going to want you around all the time now," Grace warned. "She'll want you to take her to school, read her bedtime stories, come over for dinner." A slow smile spread across Logan's face. "That sounds perfect to me." Before Grace could answer, Ellie returned, holding a large, colorful sheet of paper. "Look, Daddy," she exclaimed, using that new word naturally, as if it had always been part of her vocabulary. "It's our family." The drawing showed 3 smiling stick figures holding hands, a small one in the middle with curly hair, a taller one on the left with long hair, and another on the right, slightly taller, with short hair. "That's me," Ellie explained, pointing to the smaller figure. "That's Mommy, and that's you. I drew it before I even knew you were my real dad. Cool, huh?" "It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen," Logan replied sincerely, his voice choked with emotion. Ellie beamed, satisfied, before climbing onto the couch between Logan and Grace, who had joined them. "Now we're a real family," she declared, taking each of their hands in hers. "Like Diego's family and Lily's family." Grace and Logan exchanged a look over their daughter's head. There was still so much to figure out, so many difficult conversations ahead, so many practical details to work through. But in that moment, with the rain pounding on the windows and Ellie between them, clutching their hands, something changed. It wasn't a happy ending, not yet. It was a beginning, complicated, uncertain, but full of possibilities. And maybe, just maybe, as they learned to parent together, they'd rediscover what they once lost between them. Outside, the rain was beginning to ease, and a faint ray of sunlight tried to break through the clouds. A week had passed since that revelation, a week of adjustments, talks, and daily little discoveries. Logan was now a fixture in Ellie's routine, picking her up from school 3 times a week, having dinner with them most evenings, and the 3 of them going somewhere together on Saturdays. That Sunday morning, sunlight poured generously through the windows of Grace's apartment. In the small kitchen, Logan was cooking pancakes while Ellie, perched on a stool at a safe distance from the stove, supervised every step with keen eyes. "You have to flip it now, Daddy," she exclaimed, pointing to a pancake that had started to bubble on the surface. "Or it'll burn." Logan smiled at the word Daddy. It was still new, and it made his heart flutter every time Ellie said it. In one quick move, he flipped the pancake, revealing a perfectly golden underside. "Perfect," Ellie clapped. "I make the best pancakes in the world." "Better than your mom's," Logan teased, keeping his voice low and glancing playfully at Grace, who entered the kitchen at that moment. "Way better," Ellie whispered conspiratorially, cupping her hand around her mouth as if sharing a big secret. "But don't tell her." Grace pretended not to hear, hiding a smile as she grabbed plates from the cupboard. "What are you 2 whispering about?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing," they answered in unison, exchanging sly looks that made Grace shake her head in amusement. That was what surprised her most these past days, the natural way Logan and Ellie bonded, as if the 5-year separation was merely a short hiatus. Ellie had embraced the idea of having a dad wholeheartedly, with no hesitation or resentment. For her, it was simple. Logan was her father, and he was here now, and that was all that mattered. "Breakfast is ready," Grace announced, setting the last glass of orange juice on the small dining table. Logan lifted Ellie off the stool in one fluid motion, spinning her once in the air before setting her on the floor, making her giggle. "Wash your hands, kiddo," he reminded gently. While Ellie dashed to the bathroom, Logan brought the plate of pancakes to the table, pausing next to Grace. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked, genuinely confused. "For this." He gestured broadly at the kitchen, the set table, the comfortable presence of the three of them on a Sunday morning. "For letting me be part of it." Grace studied him for a moment. The Logan in front of her was different from the ambitious young man she'd known in college, different even from the successful CEO she'd met again a few weeks ago. There was a sense of peace about him now, a calm, steady presence she'd never seen before. "She needs you," Grace replied simply, and she always did. Something passed between them at that moment, an unspoken understanding, a small step toward healing old wounds. It was interrupted by Ellie's return, showing her freshly washed hands. Breakfast went on with surprising ease, a naturalness that had settled among them. Ellie dominated the conversation, weaving elaborate stories about what her toys did when no one was looking, while Logan and Grace listened, asking questions and exchanging smiles over the girl's head. After the meal, while Grace washed dishes, Logan and Ellie settled on the sofa to read the new book he had brought, a story about a bear discovering the stars. Grace watched discreetly from the kitchen. Ellie was tucked against Logan's side, her head resting on his shoulder as he turned the pages, doing different voices for each character. The look of wonder on her daughter's face, wide eyes, that little focused smile, was something Grace knew she would cherish forever. But it was Logan's expression that truly moved her. The man who once placed ambition above all else now looked at his daughter as if she were the center of his universe. Each reaction of hers, a sigh, a laugh, a question, was received by him like a precious gift. "It's the bear! The bear is going to find the brightest star," Ellie exclaimed, pointing to an illustration. "You think so?" Logan asked, leaning in closer. "And what will he do when he finds it?" "He'll make a wish, of course," Ellie answered, as if it were obvious. "And guess what his wish will be?" "What is it?" "He'll wish for a family, like ours." The book almost slipped from Logan's hands. He looked at Ellie, who was still pointing at the picture, unaware of the impact of her words. When he raised his eyes, he found Grace watching them, tears in her eyes. "Bath time, Ellie," Grace said, composing herself and walking over to the sofa. "Just one more page, please," Ellie pleaded, putting on her best begging face. "Only one more," Grace relented, sitting on the other side of Ellie. Logan finished the page, his voice slightly rough. When he closed the book, Ellie turned and threw her arms around his neck. "Thanks for the story, Daddy," she said, hugging him tight. "I love you." It was the first time she'd said those words. Logan closed his eyes, hugging her back, feeling tears threatening. "I love you too, Ellie, more than you can imagine." The hug lingered, a real embrace with no reservations. Father and daughter, finally together, with no secrets or barriers. When Ellie finally pulled away, Logan noticed Grace had joined the hug too, her arm around Ellie, her hand lightly on his shoulder, and in that moment, all three of them crammed together on the small couch, something solidified. A bond not just between Logan and Ellie, but among the three of them. "Come on, kiddo," Grace said, standing and extending her hand. "Bath time." "Is Daddy staying for dinner?" Ellie asked, grabbing her mother's hand. Grace glanced at Logan, a silent question in her eyes. "If your mum doesn't mind," he replied. "Of course not," Grace said with a small smile. "How you can pick the movie after dinner, Ellie?" "Yay!" the girl shouted, running off to the bathroom. As Grace turned to follow her daughter, Logan gently touched her arm, stopping her for a moment. "I won't let you down," he said, voice laden with emotion. Not Ellie and not you, I promise. Grace looked deeply into his eyes, as though searching for something. Whatever she found must have convinced her, because she gave a slight nod. I know, she replied simply, before heading after Ellie. Logan was left in the living room, surrounded by traces of the life Grace had built during his absence. Ellie's toys, books on the shelves, pictures on the walls. But now there were also signs of his presence, his jacket on the coat rack, the book on the sofa, the ingredients he'd brought for breakfast, small signs of belonging, small signs of a home forming. From the bathroom, he could hear Ellie's laughter and Grace's soft voice. And for the first time in a long while, Logan Carter felt he was exactly where he should be. The last 3 weeks had been Logan's happiest. Each day brought new discoveries about Ellie, her expressions, her tastes, her quirks. He had integrated into her routine with a naturalness that even surprised Grace, picking her up from school in the morning, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, common activities for any father. But for Logan, they were newly found treasures. That Tuesday, however, something was off. When Logan arrived at the apartment for dinner, he found Grace looking worried. Ellie's not feeling well, she explained, as she led him to the girl's room. She started complaining about a headache at school. Her teacher called at lunchtime saying she was too quiet. Logan followed Grace into the room, decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and a neat row of stuffed animals on the shelf. Ellie lay in bed, her usually rosy face now pale with red patches on her cheeks. "Hi, Daddy," she murmured, her voice tired. Logan sat on the edge of the bed, placing his hand on her forehead. It was hot, very hot. "Hey, Princess, not feeling great." Ellie shook her head weakly. "My head hurts, and I'm cold." Logan looked at Grace, who was biting her lip. A nervous habit he knew well. She always did that when worried. "I gave her some fever reducer an hour ago," she explained quietly. "But the fever hasn't gone down." "What's it at?" Logan asked, equally concerned. 102.5 last time I checked." Logan frowned. That was high for a child's fever. He remembered his mom saying anything over 102 was cause for immediate concern. "I think we should take her to the hospital," he suggested, trying to keep calm. Grace nodded, relief evident on her face. She'd already reached that conclusion, but seemed reassured with Logan there to share the decision. At the ER, they were attended to quickly after the triage nurse took Ellie's temperature, now 103.1, and noted how lethargic she was. Dr. Reynolds examined Ellie thoroughly and ordered several tests. "We'll need blood work and a chest x-ray," he explained. "From her swollen lymph nodes and the fever pattern, this could be either a viral or a bacterial infection." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ellie had her blood drawn, got an x-ray, and was finally taken to a private room in the pediatric wing. A nurse set up an IV drip to keep her hydrated and attached monitors for her temperature and heart rate. It was after midnight when Ellie finally fell asleep, exhausted from the tests and still fighting the fever, which was slightly lower with IV medication. Around 2 in the morning, Dr. Reynolds returned with preliminary results. His face was serious but not alarmed. "We have some initial findings," he said, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Ellie. "It appears to be a fairly severe bacterial infection. Her white blood cell count is very high, and the X-ray shows early signs of pneumonia." Grace went pale, her hand automatically seeking Logan's, which he gripped tightly. "What does that mean?" Logan asked, trying to keep it together. "It means we'll start her on strong antibiotics right away," the doctor explained. "Ellie will likely need to stay here for a few days, maybe 3 to 5, depending on how she responds." By 4 in the morning, with Ellie sleeping under medication and Grace finally dozing in a chair, Logan's phone vibrated. He stepped into the hallway to avoid disturbing them. It was Patrick, his partner and co-founder of TechVision. "Pat, what's going on? It's 4 in the morning." "Logan, we have a problem." Patrick's voice sounded tense, almost frantic. "A big problem. Our central server got hacked. All client data, including Dynex, has been compromised." Logan felt a chill. Dynex was their biggest client, responsible for almost 40% of the company's revenue. "How bad is it?" "Worst case scenario." Patrick sighed heavily. Data for over 2 million users exposed. The press already got wind. The Dynex CEO is furious and threatening to sue for negligence. Our stock is already plummeting in the Asian pre-market. Logan closed his eyes, processing the magnitude of the disaster. Years of work, millions invested, the company's reputation, all at risk. "We need you here, Logan. Now," Patrick pleaded. "Only you have the credibility with Dynex to try to contain the damage." Logan glanced at the hospital room door, where his daughter and Grace lay sleeping, unaware of the crisis unfolding. "Pat, I can't. Ellie's in the hospital with pneumonia." "I'm sorry about your daughter, Logan, truly," Patrick said, sounding sincere but desperate. "But we're talking about the company's survival. Hundreds of jobs are on the line." When Logan returned to the room, Ellie had woken up and was calling him softly. "Daddy." Her feverish green eyes glowed in the dim light. "I'm here, princess." He approached quickly, sitting on the bed's edge and wrapping her small hand in his. "Are you going to stay with me?" Ellie asked, her fingers lightly gripping his. The phone vibrated again in his pocket. Logan knew it was Patrick, needing an urgent answer. "Now that you're here, promise you won't go away again?" Ellie asked, her eyes struggling to stay open. Logan looked at his daughter, then at the phone that wouldn't stop buzzing. On one side, his sick, vulnerable daughter who needed him. On the other, his company, his professional legacy, also in crisis, also needing him. The choice he made right now would define what kind of man he truly was. "I promise, Ellie, I'm not going anywhere." The words left his mouth with a certainty that surprised even him. As he spoke them, Logan felt a weight lift from his shoulders, the weight of a decision that, in reality, had been made the moment he learned Ellie was his daughter. He watched her drift back to sleep, making sure she was comfortable before stepping back into the hallway. Grace followed, her face etched with worry. "Logan, what's going on?" "That call." He took a deep breath and told her about the crisis at the company. Grace listened in silence, her eyes never leaving his. "You have to go," she said at last, surprising him. "I'm not leaving you two." "Logan, there are hundreds of jobs. It's your company." He shook his head, his resolve unwavering. "5 years ago, I chose the company over us. I won't do that again. Not with Ellie sick, not after the promise I just made." Logan pulled out his phone and called Patrick. "Pat, listen, I'm not leaving the hospital. My daughter's sick, and I promised I'd stay with her." "Logan, you don't understand how serious—" "I understand perfectly," Logan cut him off, his voice calm but firm. "And I'm going to face it. But from here, call Marcus from legal and Sarah from PR. Set up a video conference with me in half an hour. We'll devise a containment strategy I can coordinate remotely." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "This isn't ideal, Logan. Dynex will want you there in person. Then schedule a video conference with them too. Explain the situation. If they really want to solve the problem instead of just venting anger, they'll understand." After he hung up, Logan turned to find Grace watching him with an expression he couldn't read fully. "You just risked your company for us," she said softly. "No," Logan corrected. "I'm fighting for both. I'm just adjusting my priorities to what really matters." The following hours were intense. Between checking Ellie's vitals and comforting Grace, Logan led a series of video conferences from a small conference room in the pediatric ward that the hospital kindly let him use. The crisis didn't ease quickly. Dynex was furious, the press smelled blood, and investors were panicking. During one tense call, the Dynex CEO openly questioned Logan's commitment. "I know your daughter is ill, Carter, and I sincerely hope she recovers soon," the executive said coldly. "But I need to know if Tech Vision is still a reliable partner or if you've lost focus on business." Logan took a deep breath before responding. "My company has always been built on two things, Mr. Mitchell: innovative technology and integrity. Today I'm demonstrating both. Integrity by honoring my commitment to my family, and innovation by finding solutions under difficult circumstances." He paused meaningfully. "Just as I will find a solution to this data breach without abandoning a sick child to do it." Surprisingly, that answer seemed to earn some respect from the CEO. The talks proceeded, and Logan coordinated a containment plan via laptop and phone, delegating tasks to a trusted team working tirelessly at headquarters. By the end of the first day, it was clear that while TechVision's reputation had taken a hit, the company would survive. Some smaller clients cancelled contracts, shares dropped significantly, but the deal with Dynex was saved, though with stricter terms and hefty financial penalties. "We'll make it," Patrick admitted grudgingly during a late-night call. "But it'll be expensive, Logan. The fines, new security measures, crisis management, we're talking millions." "Money can be recouped," Logan replied, looking through the glass door at Grace reading a story to Ellie, who was finally more alert after the antibiotics took effect. "Some things are irreplaceable." For the next 3 days, Logan settled into a new routine. Mornings with Ellie by her bedside as she recovered, breaks for video conferences and calls, afternoons playing board games with his daughter whenever she had the energy, and nights working quietly on his laptop while Ellie slept. Grace watched this balancing act with mixed admiration and concern. "You're going to wear yourself out," she commented on the third night, bringing him a coffee from the hospital cafeteria. "I'm fine," Logan insisted, gratefully accepting the coffee. "How's she doing?" "Better, her fever's completely under control. The doctor said if it stays that way, we can take her home tomorrow." Logan smiled, the first genuine grin in days. "That's the best news I've heard all week." Grace sat next to him, watching Ellie's sleeping form. "You know, for a moment, when you left the room to take that first call," she hesitated, "I thought you were going to pick the company." "Like last time." "I did too," Logan admitted. "For a brief second, all those old instincts came back, the need to fix the problem, to be in control, to save what I built." "What changed?" Logan looked at Ellie, her chest rising and falling softly, her curls spread on the pillow. "I realized I'd made that choice once before and regretted it every day for the last 5 years. He turned to Grace. "Some lessons you only learn by enduring the pain of a wrong choice. I didn't need to make the same mistake twice to know where my heart truly lies." The next morning, the doctor confirmed Ellie could go home. The pneumonia was responding well to treatment, and she would continue on antibiotics, but could recover in the comfort of her home. While they packed up, Logan got a text from Patrick with the financial damage summary. The company lost nearly 30% of its market value, faced heavy fines, and would likely have to sell a smaller division to raise capital. Nothing they couldn't rebuild eventually, but a significant setback. "Bad news?" Grace asked, noticing his expression. "Nothing that can't be fixed," Logan replied, pocketing the phone. "Just numbers on a spreadsheet." Ellie emerged from the bathroom, still pale but with a returning sparkle in her green eyes. "I'm ready to go home," she announced, hugging the stuffed rabbit she hadn't let go of all through her stay. "We just checked with the doctor, Princess," Logan said, crouching to her level. "He says you were really brave, and now you can rest in your own bed." "Will you stay with me at home too?" Ellie asked, a shadow of worry crossing her face. "Every day," Logan promised, "until you get tired of seeing me so much." Ellie smiled, that bright grin that lit up everything around her, even dulled by illness. "I'll never get tired of you, Daddy." As they left the hospital, Ellie between them, holding both of their hands, Logan felt more at peace with a difficult choice than he ever had. The road ahead would be challenging, rebuilding parts of the company, balancing work and family, mending trust with Grace. But he now knew, beyond any doubt, what his true priority was. And seeing the look Grace gave him over Ellie's head, full of something he hadn't seen in a long time, renewed confidence, maybe even the start of something more, Logan knew he had made the right choice. Some things were worth any price. 3 months had passed since Ellie's hospitalization. Spring arrived, bringing longer days and gentle warmth that spread over the city after a harsh winter. In recent weeks, Logan had faced the greatest professional challenges of his career, but surprisingly, he found a clarity he'd never had before. Sitting in his office at TechVision, Logan reread the final contract that would completely restructure the company. The repercussions of the cyber attack had been severe: market value lost, tarnished reputation, shaken client trust. Yet, amid the chaos, he discovered a chance for reinvention. "Are you sure about this?" Patrick asked, watching Logan sign the document. "We're talking about selling 40% of the company to Meridian. You never wanted outside investors with so much decision power." Logan set the pen down and looked at the panoramic window overlooking the city skyline. The Logan from 5 years ago would have preferred bankruptcy to giving up control, he admitted. "But I have different priorities now. This deal gives us the financial stability we need, saves the team's jobs, and lets me have a balance I never had before." The agreement with Meridian Technologies was less a defeat and more a transformation. Selling part of the company would guarantee the capital to recover from the crisis, implement advanced security systems, and rebuild clients' trust. In return, Logan gave up being the sole head honcho, accepting a role that, while still crucial, would allow him to be present for his family in a way never possible as a full-time CEO. "You really have changed," Patrick remarked, his tone neutral, only stating a fact. "For the better, I hope," Logan answered with a small smile. After the meeting, Logan left the building earlier than he would have a few months ago. He'd arranged to meet Grace and Ellie at a small community garden near their apartment. Ellie had started a school project, planting a seed and caring for it, and insisted the three of them should do it together. When he arrived at the garden, he spotted them right away. Grace wore a simple summer dress, her hair loose in the light breeze, while Ellie, now fully recovered from pneumonia, dashed from one flower bed to another, inspecting each plant with childlike wonder. "Daddy!" she shouted upon seeing him, racing over. "Come see! Our flower is opening." Logan scooped her up, letting her guide him to a small planter where, 6 weeks earlier, they had planted a sunflower seed. At the time, right after Ellie's hospital discharge, it was a way to keep her occupied during recovery. Now, a young green plant rose from the soil, with a yellow bud beginning to emerge. "Look, it's smiling at us," Ellie declared, pointing to the flower as its petals began to show. Grace walked over, smiling at her daughter's excitement. "It's grown more than I expected," she commented, looking not at the plant, but at Logan. There was something different in her gaze now, a softness that had appeared gradually over the past weeks. Ever since Logan's decision at the hospital, something fundamental had changed between them. The distrust Grace held as a protective shield had started to crumble, brick by brick. "The prettiest things need time and care to grow," Logan replied, also not talking just about the flower. Ellie was too busy examining the plant to notice the moment between the adults. Logan set her down, and she immediately knelt beside the budding flower, studying every detail. "Can we have a picnic here tomorrow?" she asked suddenly. "Right here, next to our flower, to celebrate?" "I think that's a wonderful idea," Grace agreed. "What do you think, Logan?" "I wouldn't miss it for anything," he replied, feeling that familiar warmth in his chest whenever the three of them made plans together. The next day, they arrived early at the community garden, carrying a picnic basket and a bright blanket. The sunflower had opened even more overnight, its yellow petals fully visible now, facing the morning sun. Ellie was delighted by the transformation. "It grew so fast," she exclaimed, peering at the flower from every angle. "Just like you," Logan teased, ruffling her hair affectionately. They spread out the blanket near the planter and laid out the simple breakfast they had prepared together. Sandwiches, fresh fruit, orange juice, and the chocolate muffins Ellie had helped bake, proud of her culinary contribution despite some small kitchen disasters. "Here's to the best breakfast in the world," Ellie said, raising her cup of juice in an improvised toast. Logan and Grace laughed, tapping their cups against hers. It was such a simple moment, yet so perfect. The sun warmed them gently, the scent of flowers filled the air, and there they were, no longer separate pieces, but a family. While Ellie munched her second muffin, Grace gave Logan a thoughtful look. "How's the company?" she asked quietly, not wanting Ellie to overhear. Though she knew about the crisis, they kept the details away from her. "Different," Logan replied honestly. "Smaller in some ways, stronger in others." He paused. "I signed the deal with Meridian yesterday." Grace nodded, understanding what that meant. "How do you feel?" "At peace," he said, realizing it was true. "For the first time, I'm not trying to prove anything to the world or myself. I know where I need to be and what really matters." Grace smiled, one of those rare, genuine smiles that lit her entire face. "I'm happy for you, Logan, truly." Meanwhile, Ellie had wandered off to watch a squirrel nearby. From where they sat, they could see her crouched down, completely still, trying not to scare the little creature gathering fallen seeds. "Look at her," Grace said softly. "So focused, so curious about everything." "Just like you," Logan observed. Their gazes met, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. In that look lay the past they shared, the hurt that separated them, and something new, something that had grown as quietly as the flower in the planter. "Grace," Logan began, his heart racing like back in college when he'd see the same eyes from across campus. "These last months, they've been a journey," she finished, her expression softening. "For all of us, I don't want it to end," he said simply. Grace reached out, lightly touching his hand on the blanket. "It doesn't have to end." The silent invitation in her words gave Logan the courage he needed. Leaning in slowly, he closed the distance, giving her every chance to pull away. But she didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes and bridged that final gap. The kiss was gentle, almost shy, like a first kiss. And in a way, it was. A first kiss for a new beginning, a new story they were writing together. "You!" Ellie's voice broke the moment, making them pull apart quickly. She stood in front of them, hands on her hips, a mock look of disgust on her face that quickly dissolved into giggles. "You look like teenagers," she declared, obviously repeating something she'd heard somewhere. Logan and Grace laughed, both blushing like two teens caught kissing in secret. "Come here, you little spy," Logan said, opening his arms. Ellie didn't hesitate. She jumped between them, forming a three-way hug that tipped them all onto the blanket in a flurry of laughter. "Are we a real family now?" she asked, looking from one to the other with those green eyes so much like Logan's. "We always were, sweetheart," Grace replied, brushing a hand over Ellie's cheek. "We just needed time to figure it out." Logan looked at them both, feeling gratitude so deep it barely fit in his chest. The silence that once separated their lives had been filled with laughter, shared confidences, and common plans. The pain he once believed permanent had transformed into something new and precious. Next to them, the sunflower shone in the sunlight, its petals fully open, a silent witness to the love that, like the plant, was born from silence, grew through adversity, and finally blossomed, stronger and more beautiful than any of them could have imagined. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.